Hello and welcome to episode 101 of Driver Suit Blog Radio. As always, I'm your host, David G. Firestone. So as I said with the Hulk Hogan lies thing, I do like wrestling and I know it isn't real. I mean, is Game of Thrones an award-winning documentary on life in the medieval era? No. But one man is controversial in wrestling and his name is Vince Russo. Actually, you know what? I take that back. He's not controversial. Everybody hates him. He was a writer for WWE, WCW, and Impact Wrestling, as well as various other indie shows. The reason why he lasted as long as he did in WWE was because he had a filter. And that filter's name was Vincent Kennedy McMahon. It's been more or less established that Russo would come up with storyline ideas based on like the Jerry Springer Show or Howard Stern or B-movies or just all of that stuff. And he would approach Vince McMahon with these storyline ideas. McMahon would listen to 50 or so ideas and filter out the 48 or 49 bad ideas for the one or two good ones that he would use. But even then, many of these ideas didn't sit well. He was known for tasteless ideas and stories. These included, amongst other things, exploiting a real-life drug and alcohol addiction for laughs. He had multiple miscarriage angles. I was going to talk about beaver cleavage, but Jim Cornette already covered that one. But the thing is, even though these ideas were completely crazy, Vince McMahon thought they were good. Now, when Russo made the jump to WCW, he was completely unfiltered. He came up with bad storyline after bad storyline, and it showed. He is not the only one responsible for the death of WCW and the damage to WCW, but he helped take the WCW championship, which was at that point one of the most respected championships in wrestling, even rivaling the WWE. By the time he was done with it, it was barely worth the materials it made of. Seriously, watch his episode of Dark Side of the Ring where he talks about the Hulk Hogan Bash at the Beach thing. I can't do it justice here. But Impact Wrestling was even worse. Now, it was originally TNA because he came up with the idea of calling it Total Nonstop Action, which, ironically enough, they're going to rebrand it. I don't know why. Excuse me. But the thing that he had in TNA Wrestling was Dixie Carter. Dixie was fanatically loyal to Vince. Like, I posted this on the Jim Cornette Facebook page. Everyone shot me down, but I think there might have been at least some kind of romantic angle going on there, because there is no other plausible reason that Dixie Carter would be as fanatically loyal to Vince Russo. Because it ran off fans, wrestlers were tired of it, it was constantly branded as tasteless, and it got so bad that Spike TV, at one point when renewing their contract, told Dixie Carter that Russo was to be fired, was never to be rehired again, and was never to have anything to do with Impact Wrestling. How does Dixie Carter handle this? Publicly fires Russo, replaces him with Bruce Pritchard, but then hired back in secret. Now, this is a very poorly kept secret, as it was clear that Russo was back writing. But because he wasn't officially there, Dixie Carter claimed, well, he's not working with us. Well, sometime thereafter, and this is by the way has been proven 100 times over, Vince Russo actually accidentally sent an email to Mike Johnson of PW Insider, who is a respected wrestling journalist who talks about facts and doesn't make his opinion seem like fact. His opinion is labeled as such. He was supposed to send this email to Mike Tenay, and it was about how Mike Tenay was doing commentary. So Mike Johnson calls Dixie Carter and questions her about it. She, of course, plays dumb. I don't think she was playing at that point. And so he printed it. Well, the subsequent exposure of this caused Spike TV to immediately boot Impact off the air. This relegated them to Destination America, which I still don't know anything about. I'm not going to look them up. They're not worth my time. Uh, it eventually ended up with them on Pop TV, which was rebranded. It was rebranded from the TV Guide channel. And then eventually Dixie Carter got booted and she ended up selling the company. So now it airs on Access and is much, much better than the old TNA. But Russo amazingly has tried again and again and again and again to get back into the wrestling industry. He's constantly sending emails to WWE, to AEW. Nobody wants to hire him. His narcissism and his writing style are the reasons he will never be in the wrestling industry again. This is a sample of his writing. This is from WrestleCrap.com. He wrote a weekly column titled, "What Didn't You Understand, Bro?" Now this is one that he wrote about Mark Henry. It's entitled, "What Didn't You Understand About Mark Henry, quote-unquote, sex addict?" Really, RD? Really? Mark Henry, sex addict, capitals? Well, as the mastermind behind this, and when developing this character, I never, capitals, saw Mark Henry as a sex addict, dash, never, capitals. Maybe we need to question what's on RD's mind. The Mark Henry character actually came from a few references. For starters, I had this friend growing up named, I'm going to redact the name because I don't want to embarrass him. He was both of Italian and Puerto Rico descent. He was like a brother to me, and he, if I may be blunt, had a rather large ... unit. And because he was blessed with such a tool, he referred to himself as sexual chocolate, so that explains the name. Now, I don't really know if Mark Henry was a sex addict. I didn't look at him that way. If you remember, Mark became somewhat of a love doctor because of infatuation with China. Mark Henry was never portrayed as a pervert or degenerate or even sex starved. He simply had a crush on China. And to be fair, if you saw China back then, I can understand where that comes from. She was very attractive in her day. Well, when writing for quote-unquote sexual chocolate, I always looked at him as Chef from South Park, so that was definitely, capitals, an inspiration for the character. However, never was there anything creepy about Mark Henry. It was all done in the name of comedy. Perhaps my good friend RD missed that. Yes, it was comedy, capitals, when Mark realized he was indeed coming onto a male transvestite. Now let me explain what that means. I'm going to stop the quote here. Let me explain that storyline. So China was annoyed by Mark Henry, so she got a very attractive woman to accompany her, and Mark took an immediate liking to her. Well, at one point, they simulate a sex act, and then Mark Henry realizes it's a transvestite. Okay, so I'm not defending it. I'm merely stating facts. So anyway, back to the article. Mark realized that he was indeed coming onto a male transvestite when in fact he thought she was a hottie toddy, HOTTIE of the opposite sex. It was also comedy, capitals, when Terry Reynolds and Miss Jackie stuffed a ball gag straight down his gullet. He never, capitals, asked for that. Yes, sexual chocolate was directed to women, capitals, but sex addict, capitals, that was never on my radar. At the end of the day, I just felt like putting Mark in this light would bring some entertainment to the show, and yes, it did. Personally, I felt the on-camera friendship between Mark Henry and D'Lo Brown may be one of the more unrelated relationships of all time. You know what? I'll defend him on that one because Mark and D'Lo Brown were good. Mark and D'Lo had some great chemistry together, and regardless of whatever scene they were putting together, they delivered. D'Lo was the straight man, the Bud Abbott, and of course Mark was the buffoon Lou Costello. But what I really object to is concerning the term sex addict, is that I truly believe that Mark Henry's appeal was that he thought, capitals, that he was Don Juan Morocco, and he was indeed a bit shy and awkward. But to me, that was comedy. So I ask you, outside of that character work, what did Mark Henry do through his illustrious career that was better than this? I'm waiting. End of the article. Let me answer that question, Mr. Russo. What did Mark Henry do throughout his illustrious career that was better than this? Everything. When Mark Henry wasn't bound by stupid, goofy characters and bad writing, he proved himself to be a good in-ring worker. Now granted, like many wrestlers of his size, he had a lot of injuries. But the comedy, for lack of a better word, wasn't good throughout most of his career. And you know what? He could do comedy in short bits, and he was entertaining at times. But with Russo's booking, he was not the first to be harmed by it by any stretch of the imagination, but he was one of the few to survive it. Vince Russo has no idea how to write a wrestling show. I think that's been established over the years. But he honestly blames everyone else for the fact that his writing made no sense. That's not how it works. That's not how it works. If you write something that's so needlessly confusing and perplexing and has needless plot twists and the audience don't understand it, that's not their fault. It's your fault. You're the writer here. And again, I like Mark Henry as a wrestler. The comedy stuff during the Attitude Era is unbearable. And the fact of the matter is, do you know, by the way, how bad you have to be as a wrestler or as a wrestling personality for nobody in the modern age to accept you when you've been as instrumental in WWE's Attitude Era as you were? Do you have any idea how dumb you have to be a pariah in wrestling when you were as influential as you are and you're not like a sex criminal? Everybody hates Vince Russo. It's been patently obvious for years. He's never going to get a job in mainstream wrestling. Even AEW, who are just hiring every WWE cast-off they possibly can, even they don't want him. TNA doesn't want him. WWE doesn't want him. He'll book a few of his own shows, but then he won't do anything. He just can't accept the fact that it's over, and he's trying to get back in wrestling, even today. I'm glad he's gone. I'm glad he's gone from Main Street Wrestling, and I hope he never comes back. And let's be honest, he probably won't. Whew. So this is the final Wheel Reviews for episode for 2023. This is the final Driver Suit Blog Radio episode for 2023. Starting in 2024, back to normal news. I'm Dave Farsley. If you like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all in 2024.